was a time when exposing your hardwood floors meant you just couldn't afford wall-to-wall carpeting. Not anymore. Hardwood floors are definitely in. And today there are so many wood and stain color choices, hardwood floors can suit any decor. The types of wood commonly used for flooring include red oak, beech, maple, white oak, walnut, birch, and ash. As soon as the wood arrives from the sawmill, workers at the floor factory stack it on racks, then pile the racks floor to ceiling in a dryer that's the size of a large barn. There, large fans circulate hot air around the racks. The wood's moisture content is between 40 and 60%, depending on the season. When that drops to about 7%, the wood is ready to come out. This drying process takes anywhere from 10 days to a month. The length of time varies because some species dry out much slower than others. The wood is in random lengths and widths, so the first step after drying is to cut it to standard sizes. On the way to the ripsaw, the planks pass under an optical device called an optimizer. In mere seconds, it reads the dimensions of each plank and sends that information to a computer. The computer calculates the greatest number of standard-sized pieces that can be cut from the plank, then guides the ripsaw to cut accordingly. This maximizes the yield and limits waste. Flooring is made from medium quality rather than top quality lumber to keep prices competitive. As the pieces exit the saw, workers manually cut out any large knots or other defects, weak points at which a piece could potentially snap and jam up the equipment. The pieces now travel to a machine called the molder. Its revolving steel knives spin at a rate of 6,000 rotations per minute, carving a tongue down one side of each piece and a groove down the other. Workers do frequent spot checks to make sure the tongues and grooves fit together snugly. The next machine carves grooves on what will be the underside of the pieces. This is for air circulation and stability. Then, an embossed wheel imprints the words, "Made in Canada." Using cross-cut saws, workers remove any faults in the wood and divide pieces that have noticeable color variations. This is the first step towards sorting the wood by grade. Now a machine called an end matcher carves a tongue and groove on the two ends. Here's the view from inside the machine. Workers check once again for faults. Then, assessing quality and color, sort each piece by grade. This will be pre-finished flooring, so the pieces now run through a sander to prepare them to receive 8 coats of varnish. For certain finishes, the first coat contains wood stain. All subsequent coats are colorless. Between each application, ultraviolet lamps dry the varnish in just a few seconds. As the flooring exits the last drying oven, it's ready for packaging. Unfinished hardwood flooring has to be sanded, stained, and varnished after it's installed. Pre-finished flooring eliminates that extra work, sparing you the dust, the drying time, and the smell. 1860, an Englishman invented linoleum, a revolutionary floor covering made of linseed oil, pigments, pine rosin, and pine flour. A century later, in the 1960s, newfangled vinyl flooring walked all over linoleum and eventually rendered it obsolete. Vinyl flooring owes its existence to a German chemist who in 1872 invented polyvinyl chloride, or PVC. PVC was considered a thoroughly useless substance until the 1920s, when an American researcher tried to make it useful by turning it into an adhesive. He didn't succeed, but in the process, he accidentally discovered that heating PVC in a solvent transformed it into a flexible plastic, what we know today as vinyl. Sheet vinyl flooring comes in a wide range of designs, some of which simulate ceramic tiles or hardwood flooring. As we see here under a microscope, vinyl flooring is comprised of three components: a felt paper backing on the bottom, a layer of vinyl foam in the middle on which they print the design, and a protective layer of transparent vinyl on top. To create texture, the factory applies an inhibitor to prevent the foam from expanding in certain areas. To make that vinyl foam, they first mix the powdered ingredients: polyvinyl chloride resins, or PVC, white pigment, and calcium carbonate, which acts as a filler but also helps color the mixture white. In a separate mixer, the liquid ingredients: plasticizer to make the vinyl flexible, fungicide to prevent mold growth, UV stabilizers to prevent fading, and a blowing agent which they later activate to inflate the foam. They combine the liquid and powders and mix for another 15 minutes. After filtering the mixture to remove any lumps or paper bag fragments, the liquid foam goes to the production line. There, a large coater applies an even layer to a continuous sheet of felt paper backing. The coated backing then passes through an oven for about 15 seconds. The heat, 220 degrees Celsius, solidifies the liquid foam, fusing the PVC and adhering it to the backing. At this point, it's critical not to activate the blowing agent. The floor's design will be printed directly on this foam surface. A graphic designer creates the artwork by computer, then with a colorist experiments with dozens of color combinations before deciding on which ones to use. The computer breaks down the final design by color in order to produce an engraved plate for each one. Then they test out the design on a piece of foam, printing one color after another until the design is complete. On the production line, printing works the same way. But because it's a continuous process, they use rotating cylinders rather than engraved plates. The flooring just rolls right through them, receiving up to 6 ink colors one at a time. A dryer dries the ink in between applications. It's time to apply the floor's top layer. This coat of vinyl is known as the wear layer because it'll be subjected to the wear and tear of walking. The wear layer protects the design printed on the vinyl foam underneath. Made of PVC resins and plasticizer, it goes on white but turns transparent once fused in the oven at 220 degrees Celsius. At the same time, the heat of the oven activates the blowing agent in the vinyl foam underneath, expanding it. To create texture, they use a process called chemical embossing, in which select ink colors contain a chemical inhibitor to suppress foam expansion. Wherever they print those colors, the foam remains flat. These height variations create relief and can simulate grout lines in imitation tile designs. To give the surface a sharper, more natural look, the flooring can proceed to a second process called mechanical embossing, in which an engraved roller imprints its pattern onto the surface. The gloss level of the flooring, meanwhile, varies with the chemical composition of the wear layer. Workers inspect the finished flooring as it rolls off the production line. It's 3.7 meters in width, wide enough for seamless installation in most rooms. The packaging is entirely automated. The equipment winds 30 meters of sheet vinyl flooring per roll.